Hello, everyone, and welcome to Daily English Dose. Today, I won't just tell you a story. I'll show you how a seemingly perfect life can be built on a great lie, and how heavy the price of that lie can be. This story will not only improve your English listening skills, but will also remind you of the importance of being honest with yourself and others. Our hero is Jessica, and her story will show us that living in a fake world is harder than facing the truth. So listen carefully. My name is Jessica, and I am a liar. This life, this home, even this name is a lie. It's not my real name, but it feels like it belongs to me now. I live in a luxurious Park Avenue apartment. Every morning, I watch the city skyline from the huge glass windows. My coffee is always perfect. My clothes are flawless, and my career as an architect is quickly on the rise. Every detail of my life is no different from a carefully chosen, meticulously constructed project. At least that's how it looks from the outside. But I have a secret. A big secret. So big that if it were to be revealed, it could destroy everything I've built, everything I have, and even the people who love me. My secret is that I am not Jessica. I am the person Jessica wanted to be. No one knows who I really am. Not even my fiancé, Michael. Michael is the best person in my life. He is smart, kind, and a successful lawyer. He looks at me with eyes full of admiration. He often uses the word perfect when he talks about me. My perfect Jessica, he would say. Every time, that word feels like a needle piercing my heart. He knows nothing about my past, my family, where I come from. I told him my parents died in a car accident and that I had no one left. It's a lie. A huge lie. My mom, my dad, and my little brother are still alive. And in that small, poor town, they continue to live as if I never existed. I worked so hard to build this life. I started everything from scratch. The night I graduated from high school, I grabbed my suitcase and got on a bus. I went to Boston. I didn't leave a single word behind. I forgot my real name, deleted my old friends, and created a new story for myself. It was very difficult at first. After school, I worked 3 different jobs. I slept only a few hours a day. My goal was just one thing: never to be poor again, never to feel the shame and helplessness of that town again. I didn't belong there. I never had. My family was an extension of that town for me. They were the biggest obstacle to reaching my dreams. I remember one day my dad laughed at me for dreaming of becoming an architect. Construction work is in your family's genes, not art, he had said. At that moment, I decided to leave without looking back. I met Michael at a business conference. It was by chance. He was representing my firm as a lawyer. When he first looked at me, there was no judgment in his eyes, only admiration and curiosity. He loved my new persona, an orphaned, strong, and smart woman who stood on her own feet. He loved the lie I had built. Sometimes I was disgusted with myself. At dinner, I would tell Michael about my childhood. I would make up fake stories. That I grew up in an imaginary Connecticut house, that my mom and dad taught me how to play the piano. All these lies were like a blanket. I would pull them over me and feel safe. But the blanket was getting thin, and the truth underneath was starting to show. The lie was like a butterfly. It was beautiful at first, but it had fragile wings that could tear at any moment. With every new success, every new lie, the wings of my lie grew bigger. But these wings were not freeing me. They were trapping me. Last week we were walking in Central Park. Michael and I were holding hands. The wind was blowing lightly, and he said, "My sweet Jessica." At that moment, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I didn't answer. It rang a second time. Michael looked at me and said, "It might be important." I hung up the phone. A voice inside me knew where this number was from. It was my brother's number. After that night, he called every day. The number kept changing, but I knew it was my brother. A voice I hadn't heard in years. We only talked once. I picked up the phone and held my breath. My brother's voice was worried and tired. "It's me. I know you don't want to talk, but Dad is in the hospital. We need help, please." His voice trembled. "We don't know what to do." That was the last thing he said. I hung up on him. After hanging up, I ran to the bathroom and splashed water on my face. I tried to pull myself together. I would just tell Michael, "Wrong number," and that would be it. But my heart was pounding so fast, I couldn't sleep that night. My family's faces kept appearing in my mind. The next day, I told Michael I was going on a business trip. I was going to Washington to meet with an architectural firm. It was a lie. I got on a plane and flew to the town. When I got there, everything was the same. The house, the garden, even my dad's old toolbox was in the same place. I knocked on the door. When my brother opened it, he had a hard time recognizing me. His face had changed and his eyes were filled with tears. "Jessica," he whispered, "you're really here?" I walked inside. The smell of the house brought back old memories. When my mom saw me, she started to cry. My dad was in a hospital bed, weak and pale. Seeing him, something in my heart broke. "Jessica, you came," he whispered. It had been years since I'd heard his voice. I couldn't even say Dad to him. My family didn't ask me why I left. They were just grateful that I was there. I paid the hospital bills and talked to the doctors. Everyone saw me as the wealthy sister, and I played that part. I decided to stay for a week. Every day, I helped my family and talked with them. But at the same time, I kept up the lies with Michael. I told him how well my meetings with the firm were going. A week later, it was time to go back to Boston. My mom and brother hugged me. They didn't want me to leave, but they knew I had to. As I was leaving the house, I heard my dad's voice. "Jessica, thank you for everything." My heart ached. I got in the car without looking back and drove away. When I got back to Boston, Michael was waiting for me. "How was your trip?" he asked. I looked into his eyes and said, "It was eye-opening." At that moment, I understood how exhausting the lie was. Last month, we set our wedding date. Michael was so happy. "Our perfect life is starting," he said. At that moment, something broke inside my heart. This life wasn't perfect. This life was full of lies. I remembered my brother's face, my dad's face in the hospital bed. I had ignored their helplessness. I understood why I built this lie. To escape the shame. But the shame had never left. It had only grown. This morning, I was getting ready to go to the office. Michael was making coffee in the kitchen. He came up to me, held my hand, and said, "Our wedding is only a few months away. I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you." His eyes were sparkling, and his voice was so sincere. I thought about how cruel I'd been to him. To save myself from my shame, I had dragged him into a lie. I couldn't play this game anymore. Continuing this lie was the same as leaving my dad in that hospital bed. I was lying to everyone, but most of all, to myself. The lie was my biggest prison. A voice inside me told me, "This is your last chance to be free." I looked at his face. What I was about to say would turn his world upside down. I felt a pain in my heart. This pain was the truth I'd been suppressing for so many years. In that moment, I knew my lies had come to an end. I took a deep breath and opened my mouth. "Michael," I said. My voice was trembling. "We need to talk." The bright smile on Michael's face faded. He looked at me with confusion and curiosity. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" he asked. I started to talk, and the words tumbled out like an avalanche. I told him about the family I had abandoned years ago, my shameful past, and the new identity I had created to escape poverty. I confessed every one of my lies. looking him in the eye. I told him that the life he thought was perfect was actually a fake story. Every word lifted a weight from my heart, but at the same time, it stabbed a knife into Michael's. When I finished, silence fell. He was frozen in place, his eyes were empty. His face showed disappointment, pain, and shock. Then he slowly shook his head. All this time, why? He whispered. I tried to defend myself. I told him how scared I was of losing him, and how ashamed I was of my past. But these words were hollow. The truth was so heavy that no excuse could lighten it. That night, Michael left the apartment. When he closed the door, I thought everything was over. The world of lies I had built was shattered. But strangely, for the first time, I could breathe a deep breath. There is nothing left to hide. I cried all night long. But these tears were not from shame or fear. They were the tears of a soul set free. A few days later, Michael sent me a message. He said he wanted to talk. We met at a cafe. His face was pale, but he looked calmer. Jessica, he said, you have been living under a heavy lie. But I can't marry a woman who lies to me. My heart ached, but he was right. You're right, I said. We can't build a life on lies. We decided to separate. He told me, this is how it has to be. Living a lie with you would be a torment for me. The pain of the separation was great, but this time there was a different feeling in my heart, lightness. I decided to forgive him, myself, and the shame I'd been carrying for all these years. I quit my job. I no longer belonged to that perfect but fake life. I had to find out who I really was. A few days later, I bought a plane ticket to go back to the town. This time, I wasn't running away. I was going back. I knocked on the door of my home. When my mom opened it, she was both surprised and happy to see me. I walked in, and this time I entered not as Jessica the architect, but as their daughter. My dad's health was better, but he still needed help. I had a long talk with my family, explaining why I'd lied to them. They were very hurt, but they tried to understand me. I told them I hadn't done it because I thought I was superior to them, but because I was running away from shame and fear. They also shared their disappointment. At the end of our conversation, my mom hugged me. What matters is that you came back, she said. You are our daughter. In that moment, I truly felt that I was home. I no longer lived in a luxurious apartment. I was in my old house. But every morning when I looked in the mirror, I saw myself without shame. A few months later, I received an email from Michael. I hope you're doing well, he wrote. Thank you for your honesty. Even if we don't cross paths again, you will have an important place in my life. As I read that message, I understood how lies separate us and how the truth heals. My life wasn't perfect anymore, but it was real. I continued to work as an architect, but this time I was designing new projects to develop my old town, a new school for the town center, an addition to the old library. The work my dad had laughed at was now my art. I was building a life free from lies. This story shows us that a lie is not just an action. It's also a burden. Jessica's story tells us how lies can turn us into a prison. Sometimes the greatest freedom, even if it's painful, comes from facing the truth. Just like Jessica, when we honestly accept our own stories, we can find our true power. While listening to this story, you not only went on an emotional journey, but also improved your English listening skills. You learned new words and phrases as you followed the story. You can listen to the story again to strengthen your pronunciation. Remember, learning English, just like Jessica's life, requires patience and honesty. If you like this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. How do you think Jessica's journey of facing herself will change her life? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Also, don't forget to check out our other videos that can help you on your English learning journey. See you in our next video. Remember, consistent listening, confident speaking.